to another episode of Tech Time Today. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a very common software development productivity tool called the Eisenhower Matrix. We're going to talk about how you can use that to help improve how you prioritize your tasks as a software developer. Before we get started, make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, hit the like button, comment below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on software productivity. What are your tips and tricks that you use? What do you think about what I talk about in this episode? There are many different ways for us to organize ourselves as software developers. I know that over the years, I've had a variety of different methodologies and things that I've used, and some of it comes from the teams that I'm on. Often when we join, a team, they already have some sort of methodology that they use, and you sort of use what they use, and then maybe like tweak it a little bit or that type of thing. And I've worked for many different teams, so I feel like just like most experienced software developers, what I do now by myself is sort of this combination of a whole bunch of things. There is this thing that you've either seen before or heard before, or even if you haven't, I guess, aware of it had a name, this is something that it will seem somewhat intuitive. It's called the Eisenhower Matrix. It's been around for a long time. That basically has a framework of how you make decisions on what task to work on based on kind of two dimensions: urgency and importance. So let's take a look at that right now. I'm going to be using a article from Asana. So Asana is a software productivity tool. I've used it before with other teams. It is a pretty good tool. It has a bunch of features. Some things I like, some things I don't. But just like a lot of these software productivity tool companies, they have blog posts, and this one goes over the Eisenhower Matrix in a way that I really like. So I'm going to link this article in the description, but I really want to focus in on just kind of like the diagram that they put out here that I'm showing you on the screen, which is the essence of what the Eisenhower Matrix is all about. Like I mentioned, two dimensions: urgency and importance. And depending on what square you're in, it depends on how you prioritize and how you handle a particular task. So if in the upper left-hand quadrant, it's urgent and important, those are the things that you do. That's what you should be focusing on with most of your daily efforts, the things that are most urgent, most important. And we're going to go over, after I go through all of these, I'm going to talk about why this sounds like simple, but it is actually hard in some of the intricacies. But let me just finish going through them first. So urgent, importance, things you do when it's not urgent, but it is important. So it's something important, but you don't necessarily have to get it done right now. That's where you kind of schedule time for yourself. And over the years, to be honest, I've been better and not at doing this, but it is pretty powerful when you get good at kind of scheduling your own time. So that's, a whole thing. And we'll circle back to that in a second. When it's not important, there are no doubt plenty of tasks on your task board that aren't that important, but just things that have been around on the task board and on your to-do list for a while. If it is urgent, so you need to get it done, but it's not really that important, those are the things you should try to delegate. I mean, sometimes it's not possible to delegate them and you are sort of forced to do them. But if possible, if you can, if there's any way, delegate them. And then when it's not urgent, not important, in the lower right-hand quadrant, that's where you should actually just like forget about it. I mean, why are you even doing this in the first place? Okay. So that's the basic quadrant. And in principle, in theory, it sounds simple, but of course, you and I know that it's not this simple. So just some examples of where this is like actually really hard is like, let's just go back to the lower right-hand quadrant where things are not urgent and not important. I know for a fact that most of you do a lot of these tasks yourself. And the reason, okay, so for me, I guess I won't presume to speak for you, but I will speak for myself here, is that a lot of times these are like little tasks. These are things that you can do quickly, and they make you feel like you're productive. So like I will find myself ignoring the stuff that is urgent and important because a lot of times it's more complicated. A lot of times it's this bigger task. And I'm like, you know what? It I'm going to do that, but let me hold off. Let me just try to get a couple other things knocked off my list. And it feels like you're doing something because, oh, I got like 3 or 4 of these unimportant things today, but like I got 3 or 4 things off my list today. And that is one of the biggest things over the years that I still run into this problem, no doubt, but I at least am a little bit more self-aware about it, and I try my best to not do this. I find myself actually thinking of the term, if you've ever heard this, of yak shaving. So like yak shaving, and there's different things that end up falling into this category, but like for me, it's things that like you're just you're shaving the yak. You're not doing anything that it's something that's going to keep on coming back, again and again and again. These little tasks, but they don't, really get to your bigger goals or whatever. So that is something that it takes discipline, but you should start to make yourself more aware of. And when you can get off, do more of the urgent, important stuff, even if they're bigger and they take longer, it's better in the long run. One thing I'm going to combine a couple different of the quadrants here and with what I just said, of one approach that I've used that I think works pretty well is the reason why it's challenged, like I said, is that the upper left-hand quadrant, urgent, important stuff, takes longer, more complicated than the lower right-hand stuff. One thing I've done that works pretty well is to try to just take those urgent, important stuff and get something done on them every day. So like, okay, you don't have to do these really detailed things to fully to completion. It is possible to juggle a bunch of different tasks and just move the ball further down the line. And that actually will help, especially if you keep on consistently over time moving the ball down the court with those urgent important items. So every day you're making small progress, more and more and more, rather than just trying to hold off and not do them at all until you have like some magical, long period of time where you can do it all at once, which will never probably happen. And so I like to, with my, most important items, first thing in the morning, force myself, just even if it's painful, even if it's mentally painful, get something done on them. Send out an email to someone to get some feedback. Do like 1 or 2 of the kind of subtasks that are part of these larger items. Just get something done to just keep making progress. So that's actually something that I think has worked before me in the past. And when you do this, actually, it somewhat bleeds into the scheduling part, the upper right-hand quadrant, because a lot of times what'll happen is that you will end up scheduling a bunch of stuff that with other people that like you move the ball down the court, you kind of put the ball in other people's court, and you're waiting for them to get back to you. So I'll often, just as an example, if I'm working on some project and I make some progress and I need somebody's feedback, I'll make sure I send it to them with the description, and then I'll set a reminder for myself, which is important. Like when you are trying to you put the ball in somebody else's court and you need them to get back to you, don't just wait forever for them to get back to you. Like, because sometimes they don't, sometimes they forget, sometimes whatever happens. So that's where scheduling comes in again, is you've taken it off your list to some degree, but if you don't add it to your schedule to recheck in on that, then it can fall through the cracks and run into issues where it doesn't happen. Final thing I'm going to mention here with all of this is for delegation. I know delegation is tough, especially when you don't have anyone to delegate to. I think this is something where it takes some time and effort, but building up a sort of reservoir or I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but a a set of resources that you can actually delegate to, which could include both humans, like people that you trust, people on your team, people outside your team, or other resources, you know ChatGPT to a degree, other things where you can push things off. To be honest, if the economics work out, don't discount paying for some of this, like paying for services that help you to delegate, or paying like ad hoc contractors. There's various micro contractor services out there that help you with all sorts of stuff. And if you push yourself hard enough to find those outsourced resources, it can help a degree. Again, depending on the economics of it, you can often get this to work out because your time is valuable. If you are truly focusing on these urgent, important items with most of your time, that makes your time even more valuable and allows you to, if you need to, spend more of your actual money on the delegation part. That's it for this topic. I hope that my thoughts on the Eisenhower Matrix and software to productivity in general were helpful. Definitely leave your comments below for any thoughts you may have on what I said that you don't agree with, or other ideas that you have. Look forward to reading them and getting back to you. And I'll see you guys again in the next episode.